The morning sun barely peeked over the jagged peaks of Willow Creek Valley when the sharp words sliced through the calm. Get off our land or face legal consequences. The threat hit me like a cold wind, standing there with my ancient mower still humming, the scent of fresh-cut grass mingling with gasoline and the earthy tang of cedar in the air. I'd been tending my family's riverside cabin near Silver Bend River, a slice of Montana solitude I'd called home since leaving my engineering firm 4 years ago. But now, 3 figures in crisp green HOA polos stood on my property like they'd been sent from some corporate war room. Leading them was Melissa Harper, her auburn hair pulled tight despite the early Saturday hour, clutching a stack of papers like they were carved in stone. Her eyes burned with a zeal that could make a bear rethink its territory. "Hold on a second," I said, cutting the mower's engine. The sudden quiet felt heavy, broken only by the soft ripple of the Silver Bend against my dock and a distant hawk's cry. This was my sanctuary, my escape from the grind of city life. But Melissa, flanked by 2 HOA board members I vaguely recognized from potlucks, Greg Larson, the fidgety vice president, and Linda Monroe, the treasurer with a face like she'd been born disapproving, looked ready to declare war. "Mr. Dawson," Melissa said, her voice dripping with the kind of authority that comes from never hearing no, "you're standing on sacred ground. This land holds the burial site of 9 Harper family members from 1852, back when this was Montana frontier." I nearly laughed. Sacred burial ground? I'd been maintaining this land for years, same old cottonwoods my dad taught me to climb, same riverbank rocks smoothed by centuries of water. My family had owned this plot since 1968, bought fair and square from Melissa's own ancestor, Reverend Thomas Harper. She thrust her papers at me like a court summons. "This is a violation notice from the Montana Historical Preservation Board. You've been illegally disturbing a protected site for decades." The documents looked official, but something was off, the language too dramatic, like a script for a bad movie. "Real government papers are dull, not theatrical." Melissa pointed to faded photos of headstones, the same river rocks I'd used for campfires since I was a kid. "Your family's ownership doesn't override federal protections for sacred sites," she declared. Greg avoided my gaze, studying the dirt, while Linda's stare could have cracked granite. I took a breath, keeping my cool. "Ms. Harper, there's a misunderstanding. My grandfather bought this land from Reverend Harper himself. I've got the deed, the letters, everything. Documents can be faked," she snapped, undeterred. "Sacred ground is sacred, no matter what papers you claim to have. We'll take this to federal court if we must." Her confidence screamed privilege, but I'd dealt with worse in my corporate days. This wasn't about gravesite, it was about power. I excused myself, heading to the cabin's cedar chest, where my family's history lived in a faded tin box. When I returned, Melissa's crew was huddled by their SUV, whispering. I opened the tin, revealing a 1968 letter from Reverend Harper himself, denying any burials on this land. Their faces shifted, Melissa's from righteous to rattled, Greg and Linda inching toward their vehicle like they sensed a storm. "Care to read this?" I asked, holding up the letter. "Or should I call Sheriff Daniels to discuss penalties for falsifying heritage claims?" Melissa stammered, her bravado crumbling. "Maybe we should verify boundaries legally," she mumbled, retreating with her team as I stood firm, clutching proof that her sacred site was a lie. Later that night, a text from an unknown number lit up my phone. "Mr. Dawson, I'm with Legacy Preservation. This isn't about graves, it's about money. Meet me at the river dock, 10 p.m. Come alone." The dock was deserted under moonlight, the air thick with tension. A man in his late 30s, Ethan Carter, emerged, nervous but resolute. "I quit Legacy Preservation because I couldn't stomach their scheme," he said, handing me an envelope stuffed with damning evidence. Melissa owned a 35% stake in Legacy Preservation LLC, a real estate firm using fake heritage claims to seize valuable land. My 5 acres, with prime river access, was their final target for a luxury development worth millions. Ethan's documents, emails, blueprints, financial records exposed a plot to plant fake graves, fake environmental issues, and force me out. Worse, Melissa had already driven 3 families from their homes with similar tactics, using her HOA clout and county connections. The next evening, Melissa's Sacred Heritage meeting packed the Willow Creek Community Center. She stood at a podium, her voice quivering with rehearsed emotion, showing doctored photos of graves and artifacts: a rusted cross, a fake urn. The crowd ate it up, nodding as she spun tales of pioneer sacrifice. I waited in the back, clutching Ethan's envelope and my family's documents. When she opened the floor, I stepped forward, reading Reverend Harper's letter aloud. This land has never held burials. My family rests at St. Paul's Cemetery since 1890. The room froze. Then, 84-year-old Mrs. Clara Bennett, a local legend, stood. "I knew Reverend Harper," she declared. "He sold that land to your grandfather, John Dawson, to bring life to the river, not death." Her words shattered Melissa's narrative. Chaos erupted. Residents split between longtime locals and Melissa's newer, wealthier allies. Then Greg Larson, the HOA vice president, pulled me aside. "Melissa's got developers bankrolling her," he whispered, handing me more evidence: financials, emails, plans for luxury homes on my land. The final blow came at 1 a.m. when my security cameras caught Melissa and a fake archaeology team planting graves, chemically aged coffin fragments, animal bones, fake headstones. I had it all on video. Sunday's Heritage Walk was Melissa's last stand. She led residents to my burial site, where her hired expert, Dr. Sarah Klein, gushed over historical finds. But I arrived with Sheriff Daniels, Attorney Maria Torres, a real archaeologist, Dr. James Lee, and a news crew. Playing the footage for all to see, I exposed Melissa's fraud. Dr. Lee debunked her artifacts as modern fakes. Sheriff Daniels cuffed her for fraud, trespassing, and evidence tampering. Melissa's plea of protecting sacred ground fell flat as I held up Reverend Harper's letter. "The only thing sacred here is the truth you've betrayed," I said. The fallout was swift. The FBI raided Legacy Preservation's offices, uncovering a multi-state fraud ring. Melissa faced federal charges: wire fraud, evidence tampering, even desecration violations. Her assets frozen, her husband divorced her, and her house was foreclosed. Mrs. Bennett became interim HOA president, dissolving Melissa's fake foundation. My $90,000 settlement covered legal fees, but the real victory was the community's healing. Monthly Heritage Walks, led by Mrs. Bennett, shared real local history, not Melissa's lies. I erected a granite marker by the river, in memory of John Dawson and Reverend Thomas Harper, who knew sacred ground is built on integrity and community, not greed. As I sat on my dock a year later, watching leaves drift on Silver Bend's surface, I saw Melissa drive by, a shadow of her former self. I raised my coffee mug not in triumph, but in quiet acknowledgement of truth's victory. Justice, I learned, isn't about revenge. It's about making space for honesty to heal what greed destroys. What would you have done if your family's land was targeted by a scheme like this? Could you forgive neighbors who fell for the lies? Should HOAs have the power to challenge property rights? Or is it time to rethink their authority? Share your thoughts, like, and subscribe for more stories of ordinary people standing up to extraordinary injustice.